Well, it's a pleasure to know you're still with us on the program Business Rendezvous on Independent Television. Well, if you could remember earlier, I said we have a whole lot to discuss this morning, and we have a guest in the studio in the person of Mr. Benedict. How are you doing this morning?
It's a pleasure being here. I'm fine.
Okay. So this issue of surging inflation that is affecting small businesses, what impact do you think it would have on them?
Well, the impact is already adverse, and inflation, the direct impact of inflation on businesses, especially small businesses, is that of a negative one, and that is the fact that when one of the things that sustains a businessman is your ability to make projections and see those projections come to pass. But what this consistent or persistent rise in the prices of commodity has done is that business men are not able to make projections, are not able to plan because the policy, the inflation, for example, you can plan around your business, you can try as much as you can to make sure that maybe in 3 months' time, this is where I want my business to be, this is what I intend to invest into the business, and this is what I project that I will be able to recoup from the business. Then there comes an inflation that is beyond economic explanation, and all of those things affect the business negatively. And then the effect in the long run is that what is already happening in real life is that people are going out of business because you need a certain amount to keep up. If the level of inflation goes beyond your financial flow in terms of the business, then the resultant effect is that people begin to run into debt in business. And when you run into debt and you can no longer handle the debt deficit, and you can no longer handle the unforeseen circumstances that are resulted from a high rise of inflation, what happens is that at the long run, people run out of flow and run out of business. That causes businesses begins to fold up. I have first-class examples of that. I have some business partners that right now, one specifically told me that if I don't take a break from this business, or reason why he had to take break, he said, if I don't take a break from this business, it will incur more debt. He is already into debt right now. And his option was, okay, I have to stop this business at least for now, because if I don't, it will incur more debt on me. And so now that is the negative effect. Of course, everything that inflation brings about in business is negative. The outcome and the effect on small businesses is negative. So people are not able to maintain the flow of cash, because if you buy, for example, when you go to buy, what the result of this inflation, rising inflation, persistent inflation, is that when you buy goods to sell, even at the point of sale, you're already selling below what is the future cost price. You're already losing money. No, we're not even talking about profit sometimes. You're already losing, because when you sell, you are going to face the reality of the market in present situation or prices, and then you discover that what you sold yesterday is not even enough to buy fresh goods today, and so restocking becomes a problem. And when a business person always had persistence problem with restocking, then it means the business is nosediving. And when there is consistent nosedive of the business, the implication is that a lot of people are going out of business, and that is not a good signal at all for a country like Nigeria.
Wow, that's serious. Okay, so do you think it's going to have effect on the common masses?
Definitely, it's already having effect. Inflation generally is already having adverse impact on the masses. The reason is that people are underfeeding right now. You understand? Because the purchasing power has reduced. The money you have that you use to buy certain quantity of food or whatever you use now can no longer afford you those things. And so the principle people are using a principle of substitution right now. Okay. And even in the principle of substitution that is supposed to reduce the effect The adverse effect that are supposed to be a palliative measure is not even cheaper. The principle of substitution is like, if I want to get a phone, this phone, and I look at it that the price is too cost, I can decide to go for maybe an alternative to this one that I want. That is the principle of substitution. I go for the alternative. And even the alternative that you go for in Nigerian situation is still very, very expensive. That is why the inflation rate, the inflation system in Nigeria today has beaten all known economic principles. Even the best of economists in Nigeria cannot explain the outcome, cannot project in reality what is happening in Nigeria, cannot explain. And that is because most of the problem we are having, the causes of the inflation, is basically political, not economical. So those are the things. So it's already having, and again, people, like I said earlier, people are underfeeding. There's malnourishment, and if that continues, when it gets to the point where it deteriorates from underfeeding to inability to even feed, what will happen is that it will raise crime. Crime will surge and all of that. So it's already a problem with the masses.
Well, okay. Well, we still have a lot to talk about, but that will be after the news. So please stay with us. After the news, we'll be right back. Well, welcome back to the program Business Rendezvous on Independent Television. Yes, we're still talking about the impact this whole thing has on the masses, and as well as what remedy could be done about the businesses. So, Mr. Benedict.
Yeah, thank you so much. When you talk about remedying the inflation, it will take a very strong governmental will, not just policy alone, but executing those policies. The government, in one hand, accepting economic advice, irrespective of the person that will be at the center or the receiving end. Because government's will is what we need right now. We have spoken a lot of English, a lot of economic projections, and a lot. CBN is practically tired right now. The finance ministry is modeling up things. And so right now, what we really need to do, although the solution to this rising inflation is long term, because we trade in forests, and we're a consuming nation, highly consuming nation, about 200 million people. So we consume a lot, and a lot of the things we consume come from outside the country. And because of that, there is pressure in the foreign currencies. And that pressure has actually devalued our naira. And that's why I'm saying that the solution is in long term. It's not something you can just wake up one morning. For us to get it right, there will still be a lot of suffering. I'm not a prophet of doom, but we have to tell the truth. And there must be a strong will from the side of the government to do the right thing. Basically now what is happening is that politics has overshadowed governance. And we must correct that mindset and accept economic advice and policies and deal with it. That is how we can really come out of this, because there are a lot of things that has caused this. The exchange rate, the disparity, naira has been so devalued, and the high level of this, and there is insecurity as well. Then the price of diesel and the PMS and even jet fare and all of that. So when there is increase in price of diesel, the repercussion on this is that when the goods come from maybe the north to south, it comes in a higher rate. So we must see how we can be able to regulate that if there will be a drop in the prices of diesel, and also even the jet, because transportation, if you can regulate, if you can make transportation less expensive, then the price of goods will automatically become cheaper. Those are the things maybe in the main term, but a lot of other solutions is in long term, because there's a whole lot of things that has happened to the economy, insincerity, corruption, and a whole lot of other things. So now, but that's not the focus today. The focus is that how do we bring Nigerians out of this, because this is Yuletide season, and there's a whole lot of the propensity to buy right now is very, very high. The people should have the goods. It's a pity that at this point in our national history that we cannot feed ourselves. Now, and if you look at, and another thing that makes it very, very funny, this inflationary rate, is that there are some states that has lower inflation than some states, even in the same country. Like, for example, we talk about Borno, according to a report, Borno, Kaduna, Jigawa, the inflation is lower. Then you talk about where it is highest right now, Akwa Ibom, Ebonyi, I think one other southern states, is very, very high. Now, why is it low in those places where it is low? It's because they can feed themselves, like in Bono, they produce the food, but the problem is that insecurity does not allow the food to come to the south where it will be sold, where it will be made available here. So because of that, there's enough food there, but there is less money to buy it, so it is cheaper. So it's more or less like a forced economic permutation. But also the reality is that they can feed themselves. So now we have to begin to look at, because we are a highly populated nation, as I said earlier, and if we can feed ourselves, inflation will drastically drop. That's just the truth. And also coupled with a lot of other economic things that government must develop the strong will to deal with. If it takes arresting some people that are responsible, because this foreign exchange, the dollar is in the hands of few. And the people that really need the dollar does not have access to the. It's in Nigeria that you have the official rate of dollar and the parallel market. That is the effect of corruption. Who are those that can access the official rate of about maybe 500 or 480 naira? Who are those that can access it? Who are those that can access it for 680 and 700? So those disparities, those are the things that government needs to strongly look into if they want to really reduce the suffering, because the suffering is real. And businesses are closing down, and it is not a good thing for a country that is fighting insecurity. Because when people run out of business, the next thing they might think of is crime. And we cannot afford to have that in Nigeria again.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Benedict, for joining me on the program today. Well, you've learned from this. So we also have more guests that will be joining us to talk business on Business Rendezvous. Please stay with us.